The race is not run under FISA rules. No FISA licenses are required.
Throughout the 1970s and early 80s, there was a war going on in Formula One, and this was called the FISA-FOCA War. And during this time, there were so many controversial things that happened as the years progressed that shaped Formula One into what it is now. So as we proceed with this series, we will be covering some of those controversies, such as today, when we'll be taking a look at the 1980 Spanish Grand Prix. But first, for those of you who are wondering, what was the FISA-FOCA War? Well, essentially, it was a battle of control of Formula One from the 1970s to the early 80s, and this was between the Federation International du Sport Automobile and the Formula One Constructors Association. At the crux of it, the teams under FOCA, who were privately owned, believed that FISA, the governing body, was biased towards the factory-backed teams of Ferrari, Alfa Romeo, and Renault, and they felt that their rights and ability to compete against those teams was being negatively affected. So the key players in this were Jean-Marie Ballester, who was the FISA president, Bernie Ecclestone, who led FOCA, and Max Mosley. The first major issue arose in 1980 at the Spanish Grand Prix. So ahead of this Grand Prix, Ballester imposed fines on FOCA drivers who failed to attend pre-race briefings at Belgium and at Monaco. The fines were ignored by the FOCA teams because they felt that the imposition of the fines was, well, unconstitutional. And because the FOCA teams refused to pay the fines, Ballester requested for the drivers who did not appear to those briefings to have their licenses revoked. As F1 reached Spain, there was a lot of uncertainty as to what would come next. There was a threat to the race, and the organizers of the Spanish Grand Prix were in fear that the race just was not going to take place at all. And so the organizers offered to pay a deposit on the fines that were owed by the drivers so they could get the race going. However, on the Thursday night of the Grand Prix weekend, representatives of the organizers went to a hearing where Ballester confirmed that FISA would not accept anything less than a full payment of the fines and that the payments had to come directly from the drivers. So while the parties tried to negotiate, it did become clear that the Spanish Grand Prix would not run under FISA unless the fines were paid. So the King of Spain insisted that the organizers proceed with the event, and so with the go-ahead from the king, they bypassed the Spanish Motorsport Federation, which was affiliated with FISA, to go ahead with the race. And because this would now be run without FISA rules, that meant no FISA licenses were required, meaning that the 15 FOCA drivers who had their licenses suspended could race. So come Sunday, all FOCA teams took a part in the race while the FISA teams of Ferrari, Renault, Alfa Romeo, and Ozella didn't. They stated that they could not afford to risk losing their FISA licenses. Drivers and team owners spoke out about their thoughts on this entire thing. Jody Scheckter said that the trouble is that the arguments they pick are stupid because FISA is 100% correct here. The sport needs a governing body, especially as the constructors are growing stronger and stronger. And Mario Andretti went on to say, we have a problem here because we have two sides who won't compromise. So clearly there were thoughts. In the end, Alan Jones did go on to win this race, but it was later confirmed by FISA that the race was deemed illegal and that all drivers and teams who participated in the race would be fined. Just another headache in the FISA-FOCA war. And that was the 1980 Spanish Grand Prix simplified.